One more thing. The Dallas Mavericks have a conundrum to solve with this Khris Middleton situation. So they gave some suggestions. And we have some suggestions for them. Welcome. You're still locked on Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Angstadt. Remember covering the Mavs for 10 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your drop and boost on NBA futures and get entered for a bonus episode of Locked On Mavs. Find an episode earlier today talking about FanDuel, sports betting partner, fun superlative things. Today's episode I want to talk about. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it to birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla cakey flavor, interesting situation. Caffeinated cake and no sugar. Let's start here talking about Khris Middleton because 5 Hour Energy. He's just had 2 really good games over on Amazon. So the NBA feels like he's suggested a bunch of different fixes. These proposed fixes for this Mavericks tanking fits really well. We got a lot of thoughts about them. Let's get into it right now. And he elevates them in different ways that I didn't think that he would at this point in his career. He was not playing a lot for the Wizards, and when he had some good games, some not good games. Like, all right, what are we going to get with Khris Middleton? And here's the thing with Khris Middleton. He's 34 years old, going to be 35 in August. He just was the oldest Mavericks player since Dirk Nowitzki in 2015 to record a game with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's making $33 million this year. It's the end of this deal he got with the Bucks, where he was an all-star, and they were like, all right, we're going to pay you to be the second guy next to Giannis. Then they moved on from him, and now it's the last year of that deal. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer. And so that's a thing. If the Dallas Mavericks do nothing over this next week, they have to make that decision. So we'll talk about that one in a second. The decision they need to make in the next week, and the one that I'm back and forth about, and I can't decide what I want the Mavericks to do here. The buyout deadline is March 1st. So the Mavericks could buy out Khris Middleton, and then he can go join a playoff team, go help a playoff contender, go play on one of those teams. He could go do that. And the Mavs have 3 games between now and March 1st. The Brooklyn Nets game, if that one gets played, there's a snowstorm happening. Who knows? The Mavericks are already delayed in their flight. Sacramento Kings, awful team. Memphis, another tanking team. 3 tanking teams in a row after this Pacers one that they just won. The Mavs could win all 3 of those games and win 4 games in a row in this stretch. And I think Khris Middleton could be in the middle of that. That could mess up the Mavs tank, right? The one thing that the Mavs can gain for the rest of this season that's not on the court chemistry or internal player development or young player development or anything like that. The one thing that they can actually gain from this season, because they're not going to make the play-in tournament. They're like 7 games out from the 10th seed. And even if they got to 10, no team in the 10th seed has ever made it into the playoffs. And even if they did make it a 9 somehow randomly, that like something crazy would have to happen for them to make it there. But like you're going to get destroyed by either the Thunder or the Spurs or whoever else you end up with. Like there's just no shot there. You're not gaining anything from all that. The Mavericks could move up in the lottery. They could improve their percentage, their standings. And there's a lot of teams behind them that are now like making moves. This tanking lottery board right now is crazy. The Jazz have 18 wins. The Mavs have 20. Memphis has 21. Chicago has 24. And they're just losing and losing and losing. And they're kind of stuck in this spot. 7 is a pretty good spot for them. 6 would be really good, would obviously be better. 5 would obviously be better. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to get there necessarily, but there's a lot of time left. And if the Mavs do all of a sudden win a bunch of games, they win these next 3 games, you're right there with Chicago, even Milwaukee, and they're in 9 and 10. And that would not be a good spot to be in the lottery. Because the farther you get outside of this top 7 and the smaller your chances are to get in this top 7, the smaller your chances are you come away with a really good guard, a really good player. I mean, these guys at the top of this draft, obviously the top 3 are incredible. Then 4 or 5, you're picking Caleb Wilson, or a lot of people are putting Kingston Flemings, the guard from Houston, in there. And Kingston Flemings would be an incredible guard. That would solve the Mavericks guard problems for the future. And so you're like, all right, well, on one hand, you want to prioritize the tank. The Mavericks are obviously not doing that. They're not going to sit players. Jason Kidd is not going to sit players intentionally, at least not yet, to lose games. So they're going to keep those guys playing. They could, though, buy out Khris Middleton and in doing so help themselves, because Khris Middleton just helped them win that game against the Pacers. If Khris Middleton didn't play, Mavs probably don't win that game. At least the way that it was played tonight. So they have this buyout deadline, March 1st, and you have to make that decision. Okay, so that's the reason to get rid of him, right? Or that's the reason to move on from him. One, it's doing right by the player, because you're like, hey, we're not going to make the playoffs. Do you want to go make the playoffs with a different team and go help the Lakers or the Rockets or another team like that? that he could actually go help because they need another scorer. They need somebody else to make a shot, another vet. He would help the Pistons tremendously. I think he'd be really good for the Pistons. And they could do that. 2, it would help them because they don't want to win games. There's no benefit for the Mavs to win games besides internal development, the young guys, whatever else. But even that, I'm not worried about the young guys if they don't win any more games the rest of the season. I think Cooper Flagg will be still great. I think Max Christie will bounce back. I think it's going to be fine. So now you have this situation to try and figure out. And for the Mavericks, the number one thing you have to go figure out first is, what does Khris Middleton want? Because if he doesn't want to buy out, then there's nothing to talk about. You're like, all right, well, we're just keeping you. And now we have to decide if we're going to tank by shutting guys down or whatever else we want to do. And it's not like keeping Khris Middleton is going to help them. He's not an all-star where he's going to help them win too many games where they're just going to be completely out of the lottery odds or anything like that. But it is just enough to where you would think about it, and just enough to where it could mess you up, and just enough to where you're like, all right, well, maybe we should move on. Maybe we should move on from him. If I'm going to be the completely cynical, like, nothing matters except for the tank, roll the tank on, load the cannons. Like, if I'm going to be that, move on from him. Just do it. Right? Their Mavs are probably not going to keep him next year anyway. But if they're thinking about keeping him next year and signing him back to a deal, then you don't buy him out, because then he's not coming back. And that's the other thing you have to think about in this. If you do buy him out, then you're probably not getting him back next year. Why would you want to keep him next year? Well, he could be a pretty cheap option. The Mavs do have, they would have his rights. They could sign him to a cheaper deal. Just 2 years ago in the playoffs, he was averaging 25 points, 9 boards, 5 assists in a 6-game series that the Bucks played. Like, that was just 2 years ago. He's had some really good games for the Mavericks. He helps them with shot creation. Right in the last 4 games he played for the Mavs, 16 points on 40% from 3. He's been pretty good with playmaking and creating shots for some other guys too. Like, he would really fit and help and be a shot creator and a shot maker off the bench for the Mavericks. That wing group of PJ Washington, Khris Middleton, Naji Marshall, Cooper Flagg, that's pretty good. Like, that's a pretty good foursome right there that you could actually win games with. Add Klay Thompson into the mix, Caleb Martin into the mix. All right, that's pretty good. You got to figure out the other ends of your roster in center and point guard. When Kyrie Irving comes back, that helps you there for sure. If Lively comes back, but the Mavs have to figure this out. They've got to make a decision on this. And if I'm being cynical, they should buy him out, because it's not going to do you any good. I don't know if keeping him is worth worse lottery odds. Is keeping Khris Middleton for next season worth worse lottery odds for this season? I don't know. This lottery matters a lot. The Mavs don't have control of their own pick the next 4 years after this. This is your one best shot to get Cooper Flagg a running mate and to get him a really good player to play with that is going to be cost controlled, that is going to be developing with him, that has an insane ceiling. It matters too much. And keeping Khris Middleton, I don't think it's worth it. But the Mavs have to make that decision, and so we'll see what they make. We'll see what they decide to do. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks daily fantasy made easy. I love going on Prize Picks because I can use all kinds of different ways to watch sports and to see and watch all kinds of different games at once. You can pay attention to all kinds of different things. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You can make every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. Think about it. There may not be a lot of things to watch in these Mavericks games, but you could watch some of these. I could just go here and pick the next couple of games coming up. Desmond Bane, 18.5 points. I'm going to go more on that. Karl Anthony Towns, 20.5 points. I'm going to go less on that. Isaac Okoro. Why is Isaac Okoro the third person I see on this Prize Picks? I'm not a big fan of that. Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn. Paolo Banchero, 0.5 dunks. Let me go with it. Paolo Banchero is going to get a dunk. You can play that lineup. If I put down $5 on that, put down $20 on that lineup, I can win 120 if I win that one. Download Prize Picks today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, ticket, the whole experience on FanDuel. So what's an NBA future? You can go check out. They have futures all over the place. They have the Mavs hit 30 wins. No, 35. No, they took them all off the Mavs. Awards are one that's a future. Cooper Flagg -500 to win Rookie of the Year. Conundrum +340. That gap is closing quick there. You can go check that one out and more. Again, put down use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with Fantasy, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Also brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax make it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. You're not having to chat GPT a whole bunch of stuff and try and figure out, all right, what does this mean? All that. I hate doing that because you're like, I don't even know if I can trust what I'm getting. But you can trust somebody from TurboTax because they are the local expert to meet with you in person or online. You can do either one of them. They handle everything: W-2, self-employed forms, and work to get you every deduction. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. TurboTax.com/local. All right, the last thing I want to talk about here is the bigs problem, because the Mavs, they've got these bigs. They've got 5 bigs, and as I'm watching Marvin Bagley, we talked about this, Slightly and I talked about this on the post-game show after the Pacers game. Marvin Bagley's outplaying Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford has 3 years left on his contract. He's making $17 million next year, $18 million the year after that, and almost $19 million the year after that, which is 10% of the cap. So it's not an insane amount. It's not one that's just it's not crippling your salary cap books, but it's not good. It's if he's going to play like this and he's going to fit the way that he fits on this team, and the Mavs don't figure out the point guard situation well enough, because I don't think Kyrie, Tyus Jones, if he comes back, Brandon Williams if he comes back, Ryan Nembhard if he comes back, or whatever else the Mavs figure out, I don't think that is putting Daniel Gafford in the best position to succeed. And then if they're not doing that, then I don't know that he's worth keeping on the team. And so that's the hard part is, one, yes, the ankle injuries all season have hurt Gafford for sure. He's been in and out of the lineup, but he's played a decent amount of games now in a row. And he's got those years left on his deal. He just doesn't fit on this team anymore. And it's glaring when you're watching this team. Dacian Kidd decided to close with Marvin Bagley instead of him. Bagley has played better than him. It has not been a huge sample size, I will say that. But you still have this situation to try and figure out, because outside of those two guys, you have Lively, who should be the future of your center position. He's young, he's really good, already proven that he can start in a playoff series. He has less questions about his fit on this roster than Gafford does. Gafford is just so dependent on a really good pick and roll guard. The Mavs don't have that right now. I think even with Kyrie back, I don't know if that solves that problem. I don't know if a rookie like a Kingston Flemings or a Michael Brown Jr., I don't know if those guys fix it either coming in next season. Do either of those guys elevate Daniel Gafford enough where you're like, oh yeah, perfect. This totally makes sense now. That contract makes sense now and all that. Playing him next to Luka Doncic, yes. Playing him next to James Harden, yes. Playing him next to Tyrese Halliburton, yes. It would make it make sense that they would elevate his game to that point, and he's an asset playing next to those guys. He has not seemed like an asset this season playing with this roster with the guard play that they have. So then you have Marvin Bagley, and Marvin Bagley has played really good. Marvin Bagley fits on this team. Marvin Bagley can hit an outside shot every once in a while, which adds an element to the Mavs system. He's a way better rebounder than Daniel Gafford, and that's one of the problems with Daniel Gafford is if he's not rolling and finishing at the rim, he doesn't get a lot of boards. He's not been a very good rebounder guy in his career. He's not the best defensive guy. He gets beat by bigger guys, and he has a hard time defending out on the perimeter. So all right, these are very specific skill set that the Mavericks under the Luka Kyrie Irving era had it worked out. Great. What does Luka Doncic need? He needs these rolling bigs. Okay, Lively and Gafford playing 48 minutes combined was incredible. And then that one player was removed from the equation, and all of a sudden it changed the whole calculus for Daniel Gafford. I feel for him. All of his weaknesses are now completely exposed. All of his strengths are completely, buried. And so now Marvin Bagley comes in, and maybe Marvin Bagley is just motivated by the fact that he's on a new team. And he's an unrestricted free agent coming up this season. He's only 26, but he's not like a starting level guy is the problem. because I don't think he can defend at that level. I don't think that he's the scoring or the rebounding at the level is enough to say, all right, you're a starting guy going forward. That covers up for your weaknesses enough. You need to have a good defensive center in the NBA. You either have to have an elite offensive center or a rim rolling workhorse center that can defend the rim. You look at all the guys, you look at all the teams that are up there in the West, right? Or up there even just in the NBA. I did this the other day when I started to go through the archetypes. You either have this like elite defensive and workhorse center, like a Gobert, a Jared Allen, an Isaiah Hartenstein, a Jalen Duren, a Rudy Gobert. Did I mention him already? Or you have this like extremely skilled max level player guy starting at your center spot. Jokic, Şengün, Victor Wembanyama, Karl Anthony Towns, Chet Holmgren. You have one of those two types, and I don't think Marvin Bagley fits into either of those types yet or enough to start. And so you're like, all right, well, that's a backup center, even if we bring him back. But we have Gafford, who's a backup center, even if he stays on the team. Then you have Moussa Cisse, who's on a two-way contract, so he's restricted this offseason. And so the Mavs may have to figure that out. And like, all right, he showed a lot that he can be a good like rim running and defensive center. He blocks a bunch of shots. Interesting development piece. Like he could get better. He's not played a ton of basketball in his life. And so, all right, maybe he can show a lot more for you. And so it's just an interesting conundrum. And then Dwight Powell. Where does Dwight Powell fit into all this? He's a free agent too. You're not bringing all 5 of them back. There's no reason for you to have all 5 of these guys on the roster next season that none of them can play together. And so the Mavs have to figure this out, and there's no perfect way to do it. If they could trade Gafford, Lively, and ensure Lively's health and bring back Marvin Bagley and Moussa Cisse, great. I think that's the best way to do it, but there's no way to ensure Lively's health. Maybe you trade Gafford for a center that makes more sense for your team that could be a pseudo starter because you don't know how many games Lively is going to play. And I think that's the problem in all of this, is that we just don't know how many games Lively is going to play. That makes it even more difficult. We'll talk about this all throughout the offseason. This will be a debate, I think, all through is what the Mavericks should do with it. Maybe there's a center in the draft that they like. They could get one at 29, the pick that they have from the Thunder. And so a lot of different issues, but there you go. There's some thoughts on Khris Middleton, some thoughts on the centers. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We've got more coming up all throughout. We've got the post-game shows. We have the text line. We have the Everydayers Club where you get ad-free episodes of this show. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.